Hey, so far we had a look at string interpolation and property binding. Both of those data binding forms put something into our element, so to say. They changed something in our element. Now, the third form of data binding we're seeing now is event binding, where we react to changes in our DOM. Let's have a look at this. So let me get back to my input field I have here, and I will remove this disabled property. I will add a line break. Okay, and now what I want to do is I want to type into this input field, and below the input field I want to basically reflect each letter that I type, or the current kind of a history of the input value of this input field. So when I type A, I want to display A. When I type a B, well, then a pipe symbol will get added, and the next value would be AB shown, so that I can see how I started this text. You will see it, but we will use event binding to do this. First, I'll set up a paragraph where I will simply output my value then. And now I'm going to add a new property here, values, which will be just an empty string. And this will be what I will output here. And now here in my input field, I want to react to typings of the user. Now we already touched on this in the first section when we were using key up here, right? Now key up is such an event binding. We can identify it by the parentheses we're using here instead of the squared brackets. Parentheses always mean that something flows out of the element, out of the DOM, so to say. Now key up is a default event with which Angular 2 ships. We would also have click, mouse over, or mouse enter, mouse leave, and much more. For this example, we're having a look at key up. And instead of typing 0, as we did in our first section, I now want to call a function here. The onKeyUp function, I will name it. Value, and then I will just, in my expression here, between the quotation marks, I will just enter the name of the function which should be executed whenever this event here is fired. So we're listening to this event by adding this event binding here, and whenever we catch such an event, so to say, we want to fire this onKeyUp method. Now, this on its own won't do much. I also want to pass the current value of our input field here. Now, the easiest way or the best way to do this is to add a local variable to this input field and just call it input element. And then here I'm just going to pass input element dot value to this keyUp method. And here I know that I will receive a value which will be of type string. Now what I want to do in this function is I will take my values property and I will add something to it. At the beginning it's an empty string, and what I will add is the value we get passed and a space, pipe symbol, space. Now let's try out what this does. I'll type an A, and as you can see, I now got the A below my input field. Now type in B, and now we got AB. So we're kind of seeing the history of our input field here. And if I enter more characters to it, you can see that this history gets longer and longer. And if I delete things, well, you can see that it now declines. And so I'm outputting every state of my input field it had throughout this application run here. And that is basically event binding. Using or binding them with the parentheses syntax here, using one of the default event or creating custom events. And we will have a look at this in a section 2 to fire methods which should be executed whenever we successfully listen to such an event and then do something. And as you see here, it's possible to pass values to those events too, or to the methods which will be executed. So that is event binding. In the next video, we will have a look at the fourth and last version or form of data binding. And Thereafter, we will have a detailed look at creating our own components and binding two properties of those components, so passing value from one component to another component, and we'll have a detailed look at custom events. So see you in the videos. Bye!